9, and we are no, we're not. Oh. We don't know what's going on. Timey-wimey, but we are going to talk about the 1996 movie.
Yep.
Doctor Who, the movie, I
guess.
Yes,
we are.
If that's the official title, there's a little...
Where we get to meet the 8th Doctor.
Paul McGann.
And what else?
Yeah, and we're going to party like it's 1999.
I'm Bottlescarred Black. Blah, blah, blah.
That's a good name. You turned into Baymax at the very end right there.
Okay, if you haven't figured it out, I'm not Daniel, but I am Battlestar Galactica today. So
you took over all of his
Yes.
social media accounts? All right.
Today I am Battlestar
I will be very
Galactica.
interested to see the change in what kind of posts come up on Instagram and Facebook. I don't have a Twitter.
So tell me about your show here, live from Gallifrey. Where did you guys last leave off?
Well, we talked about our favorite Christmas specials,
Okay.
because there wasn't one this year,
Okay.
unfortunately, but we will have a New Year special. But now we didn't know where to go, so we're going to go back in time.
This is an interesting one to pick because it's kind of an in-between original Who,
Yeah.
and Who of age. New
Yes.
boot Who, whatever.
Yeah, it is right in the middle, and it was trying to reboot it. Not even reboot it, but bring American audiences into Doctor Who, and
Right.
instead of doing, kind of like the reboot,
It
they're
has
like,
a
we're
different
gonna
feel.
pick-
It doesn't feel like New Who. It doesn't feel like old Who. It has this weird standalone
It
kind
is
of thing.
made for TV movie, kind of cheesy 90s
And this was
vibe.
actually a co-production with
BBC.
Fox and
Oh,
BBC.
yeah.
So there was like American influence in this.
There was very apparent American influence,
Right.
and okay, so let me level. This is the very first time I've
Okay.
ever seen this. Like, I've heard
Okay.
stories about it, so I kind of knew a little
Right.
bit, but watching it for the first time, there was certain moments where I was like, what? But it did set the standard for a lot of things that we
Yes.
see today.
Now, I had seen parts of this in the past on YouTube. People talk about, the Master is an iconic villain in
Yes.
Who. So I went back and I've done my Master research and I've gone back and looked at this episode in specific. I've never actually watched it from beginning to end. Some of the older Who episodes, and granted, this is kind of like we said in between.
Yes.
I only became, and I don't consider myself a Whovian. I'm more of a Doctor Who new school fan.
Okay.
I think that's different than being a
See,
Whovian.
I kind of feel like that too, because it's hard for me to watch the old episodes, and I have not watched all of them.
Right.
I am new Who fan.
Exactly. So
So-
I hesitate calling myself any type of Whovian.
But I kind of feel like as long as you like Who, you like the concept. I
Yeah,
feel like
some
can
people
be...
tell me no. That if you like Doctor Who, you're a Whovian. If
Yeah.
you and I've watched every episode from Eccleston on. Well, I take that back. Up until season 2 of Capaldi, I haven't seen anything after season 2 of Capaldi yet.
Which is fine, because
It's not
every
because
Doctor
I'm
kind of has
avoiding
their
it.
own
Yeah.
feel, own stories, their own
And-
showrunners.
And so that's where I'm at. And I went back to try to watch Tom. Everybody raved about Tom Baker.
Yes.
So I went back to watch some older stuff, and I just
It's hard. I'm not gonna lie,
didn't-
it's hard. Like, I can't get into
hard.
a lot of it either. And if any of you in the chat have any specific episodes or specific doctors to help us get into it, that would be really helpful.
So I thought that this episode was interesting for a couple of reasons. It was in this weird in-between phase.
Yes.
It was an attempt, I believe it was an attempt to reboot Who, correct?
Yeah.
And it kind of took a little while longer. It didn't come
Yeah.
right after 1996. It took 4 years before
Yeah.
we actually saw. But the feel was, I think, was this a Moffat story?
No, I don't think so.
I gotta check who it is. But anyways, it had a different feel than the previous Doctor Who's. Like I said, it had this very American influence to it. So it was a pretty interesting watch. And I watching this, it was Matthew Jacobs' story. Okay, I do have some stories some questions because I feel like there's some things inconsistent with what I know about Doctor Who and what
And
was
I feel
established in this episode.
And I feel like if we're going to go on that, the biggest one that I feel like never even picked up and was never mentioned again was the fact that he's half human.
Now,
that was mentioned in here. And I was
I
like,
gotta imagine
what?
that in 1996 must have fucking ruffled some feathers.
Yes.
Still does, apparently.
That
Okay.
was weird. And for a second, watching all of Doctor Who, and
Yes.
I don't have the greatest memories. I don't rewatch a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what?
Yes.
I actually Googled it, and I was like, he's not half human, right?
Now,
and it is like a weird...
if Facebook had existed and Facebook
people would have went crazy.
It would have broke the internet. It
Yes.
would have broke the internet.
It definitely would. Like,
this would have been Ryan Johnson of Doctor Who right here, I think. That moment.
Yeah, it would have divided audiences.
And I'm curious,
sure.
did we see a new screwdriver for this doctor in this episode? Because they at the beginning of the episode, we started with the seventh Doctor, McCoy.
Yes.
And we got the regeneration of the new Doctor. But did we ever, when he reaches into the bag at the end, is the first time the new Doctor holds the screwdriver in the entire episode when he says, "Here's your stuff back"?
I think it is the same.
I don't know if it's different.
Now, here's the producer, Nagami. It is a new screwdriver, but based very much on the old design.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So it was new for this episode, but it was the same screwdriver that went into the bag from McCoy. Okay. Gotcha. So I was curious about that. And now I have another question that I just got to get out of the way. As someone who's not familiar with the older Who,
Yes.
has it ever taken this long for the Doctor to remember his past?
Yeah, that was a big thing. I think about the
was
story
like a
in
good-
general. Like 45 minutes into it, like at least half of the episode
Right.
movie, I was just like,
He
they
didn't know
spent
who he
so
was.
much time. And usually it does take the Doctor a long time to. Oh, not
So
a
from
long
what
time,
I understand,
but-
this happened with the fifth Doctor as well, or fifth to the sixth and the seventh. Okay, so this was a thing. It's not part of the new Who story, Doctor Who stories. They jump into it. He gets the hang of being the Doctor pretty quick.
Yeah, it's
But-
just figuring out the little personality
Correct.
ticks. I mean, and I feel like with Tennant, he was out for a really
Yeah.
extremely long time. But yeah, it took him so long to remember
just
things.
kind
and-
of get, and it required almost an event, the opening of the Eye of Harmony almost.
Yeah, and
to-
that
for it
being
to,
on the
like-
TARDIS was also a little bit weird to me. But I
Yeah.
mean, there's certain things where I'm just like, I don't know enough, so I just accept it. And like Doctor Who is not always
Right.
about continuity. I don't think it ever was about continuity. They always just kind of threw things in to make, timey-wimey,
Timey-wimey,
wibbly
right.
wobbly, and whatever made the story work at the time is kind of what they did. So I kind of always take Doctor Who with a little bit grain of salt. I mean, more and
So-
more they're getting better at continuity, but
Right.
you know.
So you have been keeping up with Doctor Who's new season.
Yes.
Now, how different is it to you from 1996 to where it has progressed now?
I mean, just the quality of the production is so ridiculously different. And even from
Yeah.
the very beginning of Eccleston with like the mannequins and low
Right.
budget to
Yeah,
where
it
it
was
is
very
now,
low
where
budget.
it is movie quality in every episode, it does feel dated.
Yeah.
It feels really dated.
Interesting. So we've been kind of like having a general discussion. I kind of jumped right into like my thoughts about this episode, the feel of it. What about this story in this 1990? Why did this have to be a movie, an hour and a half long? Granted, it was a pilot. It almost felt like it didn't need to be longer than an episode, to me, anyways.
I kind of thought the same as you, but I kind of feel like they should have spent more time, especially if they wanted to bring in a new audience and more of an American audience, being in San Francisco and all of that. They should have just jumped right into it. It took so long to find out what the crux of the problem was and
Right.
where the episode was going. And it's like, oh, so the Masters finally come and trying to steal your lives. We finally get it. But we're like 30 minutes into this hour and a half special. It just kind of lingered.
So
it was a little slow moving.
I'm very curious then. I know it was released to the UK audience much later.
A few days to maybe a week later, and it did.
Oh, it wasn't that. I was under the impression that it was like a couple months later before.
I don't think it was a couple months. I want to say it was like a few days to maybe a week later, and it did extremely well in the UK. But obviously, they have a whole history with Doctor Who
Right.
versus American audiences. This was kind of, for a lot of people, I feel like was their initial jump in.
Do you
Doctor
have
Who.
that info? Are you looking that up, Doctor?
That's for Canada 2 days before America.
Gotcha. So
Oh, before
Canada
America.
got it first.
Oh, it's Canada first. Okay.
Right. So that makes me. I'm really curious. Like when they were planning this out, what it was, because it does feel to me like, hey, we're gonna reinvent Who. Let's see if we can grab the American audience with
Yes.
this. And it has. So therefore, it has a little bit different feel. One of the things that really jarred me in this episode there's a lot of things about this episode that I did like because it felt like they were attempting to make a bigger, higher quality.
Yeah.
It was low budget, but they were
trying to make it a bigger story, and
But one thing that jarred me right away was the way the Doctor and Companion kissed.
That blew me away in not a good way.
Right.
Like, I did not like that. I felt that it was rushed, and it was very kind of an American cliche that
It was
you have to have this.
much so that.
And I don't think it worked. I don't think it felt appropriate, and especially...
I'd like producer Nagami to chime in on this. Have we ever seen that kind of romantic kiss between Doctor and Companion up to that point?
No, this is very much a pull from tradition. It shocked everyone just as much as it shocked you. And as for it being a TV movie, originally it was actually pushed through Amblin Entertainment and Steven Spielberg.
Oh.
But various things fell through, and the person in charge of Fox TV movies was the person who revived it, and that's why we have it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but that was weird. It was such a cliched
kind
of moment, and I was like, whoa, that's not the Doctor.
Right. It's like, okay, they're trying to...
make it more exciting and make it
Exactly.
appeal to American audiences.
A love interest. It was like almost it was like this cliche storytelling. Like we need to,
I know, like Roman Holiday kind of
riding through the town. Yeah, right there you go. That picture right there, riding through town on the
Yes.
scooter. Now her character too. My problems with the episode pretty much could have been solved with rewriting her.
There were certain moments that I really enjoyed. I like that
The other
she was
doctor.
she was a surgeon. That Grace was a surgeon.
I
She
loved
was
her
incredibly
entry. I love the way she
intelligent.
came out of the opera and
Yeah.
she comes into surgery with her corset and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
and I thought that was great, and I like that, she finds out that her boyfriend left, and it's like, dude, she makes enough money. This
Right.
is her house, obviously.
Yeah.
He had to pick up and go. So she's a strong female character, and at the end, she is the reason why the Doctor was able to escape.
Right.
And put her life out there. But also, a lot of it, I was just like, why are you playing into these, female tropes? And
Yeah,
I don't
she
know,
became
it was
wishy-washy.
weird.
It was like she was into the Doctor and then scared, not into the Doctor. It was like
And
she
then,
didn't know,
mad and
mad at him and didn't trust him and let's check me into a psychiatric ward and it's
it was all
some
over
weird
the
flip-flops.
place. It was like a lot of melodramatic kind of unnecessary stuff when we could have got more of Doctor, more sci-fi, more. And I think that's what I miss. Like, Doctor Who is very sci-fi based, and these
Right.
are all just human characters. Like, we get the Master, we get snake demon eyes or whatever, but we don't really get to see a whole lot of the sci-fi elements in this particular movie.
Now, I don't want to harp too much on the things that I didn't like because there were some things that I really liked about this, and we'll get to the Doctor himself in a bit. I just didn't like Short Round.
Short Round came around. He.
I just thought that character was a little. I thought he was okay. It was a good character, but the dialogue was
it
just.
It did have that Dr. Jones feeling, and his turnaround at the end, where he was like, "You're a liar." I'm like, "You don't know. Like, the Master might be telling the truth for all you know, and the Doctor might be the Master manipulator."
Yes.
And how can you just change? Like, it just made it for just very cliched, very typical tropey American TV.
Where are we today with the Master? Now we saw the Master in the last formation. Was it Missy? Missy was the last Master. Is the Master now like the Doctor, where this number 13 is no longer a thing? Is the Master just immortal?
Where did we leave the Master? Because she did leave, but this whole thing, is she actually dead? Because the whole, I don't know.
It's kind of timey-wimey, but during the Time War, the Time Lords, needing someone as strong as the Master, gifted her another set of lives.
Yeah.
Right. So should we talk about the actual episode first?
Okay, I mean, we could do that. I mean, we're kind of going out into a lot of
Right.
Who theory and how it applies
Correct.
to other
so
things.
this episode is generally about the Master who was defeated
Yes.
finding new life, right?
Yeah, and I think it was a whole ploy of I want my remains taken back to Gallifrey as a ploy to take over the Doctor. He's like,
Right.
I want the Doctor to be the one to take me back.
Okay. Now, another plot point in this is the Eye of Harmony. inside the
Yes.
TARDIS. Has the Eye of Harmony always been the heart of the TARDIS? And have we seen that as much of a plot point since?
I don't even think so. And Eye of Harmony
I'm
shouldn't even
seeing
be
like
in
some
the
cringing
TARDIS.
around the room. This is.
But I mean, Doctor Who is timey-wimey, but our producer is masterful
Let's get
knowledge.
some knowledge here.
So it was later retconned by the books to merely be a connection to the Eye of Harmony. So it drew its, which is, I believe, buried underneath Gallifrey.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right, so there you have it. And I'm steering away from the actual story and the actual episode.
But it is really important because if you have never seen Doctor Who whatsoever, I feel like you would still have these kind of same questions of like, wait, what? Why this guy regenerates? Okay, new face, and you're kind of finding out about the Doctor. They give enough that if you've never seen it before, you could kind of pick up on it. But I just feel like nothing else is really explained that well. Where you're just like, I guess I'll accept that because that's what they said. I guess I'll accept that because that's what they told me.
So I've been kind of just going off and asking a lot of questions about how the episode and certain plot points affected me. What about you? What was your what is your takeaway from this episode? What did you like about it? What kind of questions were you left with it? How do you feel it fits into everything?
I did like the Grace. I did generally like her as a female companion, minus all like the kissy, lovey-dovey, like that stuff. I feel like if they got rid of all of that, she would have been a strong companion. Very intelligent, knows how to rewire things, puts herself, in the face of danger, is willing to go above and beyond what she's called to do.
Gotcha.
Short Round Lee, I think his name is. Lee could have been extremely interesting if he was more manipulated on both sides, and they both tried to like convince him, and he was the one to be the turning point between the Doctor succeeding or failing. But it wasn't. Everything kind of felt a little flat, but all the elements were there. I was actually really surprised when they both died, though. I thought that was really shocking for
That's
a TV
the last
movie.
thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
Because the ending of this, again, it's a little timey-wimey.
Of course, because Doctor Who.
I'll get to that. What did you think of Paul McGann?
I really enjoyed Paul McGann, actually.
So did I.
I was surprised because, being older and everything being a little more dated,
Yes,
his
I
acting
actually
held up.
really enjoyed him as the Doctor. He is regal, I guess, but casual.
But
I
also
know he's got...
funny, like he kept the toe tag on
Yeah.
for a ridiculously long time, and I feel like these little sight gags as he's walking around and looking through the hospital are incredibly engaging and funny and kind of, I don't know, characterize him just a little bit.
I was a little scared at first. This scene right here, when he breaks out of the morgue and they're doing the Frankenstein thing, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of weird. But then they had Frankenstein actually playing in the morgue, and I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of funny. But
and they kind of had that too, the machine, the Clockwork Orange thing at the end. They're kind of trying to put that Frankenstein feel into the whole movie.
Overall, I really liked McGann's performance as the Doctor.
Yeah.
I liked McCoy's performance as the Doctor too at the beginning.
Yeah, and I love that he came back for this to
Yeah.
do the regeneration and transition the Doctors. And like as an actor, I feel like even years
I am
afterwards,
not
like, he
familiar
back.
with the Seventh Doctor, but like I said, I really enjoyed the portrayal. I thought both of them worked really well in this episode. Now McGann, I think, has only done like one short since. And there was never, I don't know if there was a regeneration that ever happened between him and Eccleston in some kind of short.
Well, it's technically he would regenerate into the War Doctor, and I think are there Big Finish parts for that regeneration?
Yes.
That was shot.
Oh, that was shot. Oh, that
the
was
War
actually
Doctor.
shot.
Now the War Doctor, I got to go back and rewatch that, but I remember saying that might be my favorite Doctor at the time of watching.
He is John Hurt is absolutely amazing.
That might be my favorite Doctor. But we'll get into that. So overall, did you like this episode?
I did. I don't think it's my favorite, especially from where we are today in Doctor Who as far as production, storytelling, continuity, characterization. It could have been better, but going back to where Doctor Who was before it hit American audiences in this kind of reboot, reintroduction, I thought they actually did a pretty good job, and I was extremely critical of it when I finished watching the movie. But the more I think about it, the more I thought like it set up a lot of points that will be used in future Doctor Who series.
As well as set up a few things to be contested for for some time amongst the fandom, I would believe.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the regeneration
There
Timor
we go.
Doctor.
There
okay.
we go.
See, I have to rewatch so much. I'm not one of those people who generally rewatch, and
Yeah,
like
me too.
I have to go back.
I
'cause
need, like, when I'm doing research is when I go back and watch things.
That's kinda what I do,
computer's
too.
freaking out. I was trying to get to the chat room, but my trackpad
For
is
those
all
of you in the
locked up.
chat, you are blowing it up, and our
Yeah.
computer is now frozen.
Yeah,
We love
so-
stuff like that, though.
That's awesome. Okay, I got a little bit. It's so Matthew Thompson chimes in. He says he loves Baker.
All right.
The Thunder 1986 McGann still shone through it. There you go. We
Here
got
we go.
comments. You can get them now. I can stop fighting with my computer. And hello, everybody. Yes, thank you, everyone, for joining into the chat. We will get to the chat as we go through this episode. We didn't mean to ignore you. Listen, the best way to get your opinions heard here on this show by that hashtag show live from Gallifrey. I was
Yes.
going to call it live to Gallifrey. Super chat, people. You help us out. It helps the show out. It helps everything about this.
Hopefully we won't have the chats freezing with your contributions. We could get better Wi-Fi, better connection.
And I want to say what's up with lightning bolts to Thor Odinson. So
Great name.
Yeah.
And we have Thunder, 1986. First time I ever watched this was in 1996, and for some reason I thought Gene Wilder played the Doctor in it. And originally, because of the hair, I 100% agree
it
with you
has
when
a
he
bit
first
of the Willy Wonka feel in that.
he really
in that
does.
photo
And
right
when
there.
he comes on and the hair going wild, and the longer face too, it does have that Gene Wilder kind
Yeah,
of.
I mean, this is definitely.
And maybe with the Frankenstein references
Yeah.
too, that might play into it. But
I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, let's get to this end. At the end, this is where I felt like this was an American television executive saying, "Well, we have to bring them back."
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have the two humans die, and then they regenerate-ish, come back to life
Yeah, like
at the end of the
let's
story.
go back a few minutes before they died and do some timey-wimey magic and bring them back to life.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought their send-offs were really good, though. As much as I didn't like, kind of was critical about a lot of
Right.
it. I did like the send-offs. I like how Lee was like, hey, here is your stuff back. And then also here's the gold. And Doctor's like, you could just keep it.
Yeah.
He's like, wait, what, really? And it was a funny moment where he's like, yo, I'm gonna leave before you change your mind. And I thought that was a real honest kind of like acting. And I thought his acting was really good. I
Right.
feel like in the situations he was in, I feel like
Look-
any other guy would be just like Lee.
Yeah, I don't think that's wrong at all. I don't know what it was. I think it was just a lot of the dialogue that was written for this character was really subpar.
Some of the dialogue in general for all the characters, I felt bad for him. I feel like he did a good job with what he was given.
I really like the like I said, I really like the Doctors. Eric Roberts as Master. I thought he was kind of cool. He seems to have gotten a lot of flack over the years for being
Really?
cheesy.
I mean, cheesy, but it's kind of, he had that Terminator look, and you have to remember, we are in the heart of the 90s
Yes.
of what you think like a really cool
Now-
villain would look like in America. That is kind of
Doctor Who has
what
some
it
very
is.
deep and complex storytelling, but also at the same time, it's also known for being a campy sci-fi show.
It is, and this where he looks like Doctor Strange with like his cape and everything. Okay, I could see like when he turns into like the actual master and he
Right.
picks his wardrobe and it's like, that's what you picked. That's a little flamboyant and over the top, but you are the master,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I accept it.
He looks kind of like Marilyn Manson right here, about to go out on stage or something.
Yeah, I could see that too.
It's a little rock and roll.
Yeah.
I dig it. Now, like I said, I've always had trouble revisiting anything pre-Eccleston. I even have trouble with the Eccleston.
I
movies.
agree because the production was so low budget. But when I think about what they were given to work with, it's good for the time, but it can't hold up to what we
Right.
have now.
Now, Tom Craven says, best TARDIS interior ever. Now, that's a good point.
It's the most comfortable.
It had some interesting things. It had a more cyberpunk-ish feel than usual in this TARDIS.
But
again,
just
going
with the
back,
chairs and the tea and being able to entertain his companions and guests.
we got
I
a
thought
lot
was
of
good.
close up of buttons and levers being pulled, which they do in every Who episode. But there was a real organic feel to the props in this.
Yes.
Best ever? I don't know. That being inside the TARDIS. What is known as the heart of the TARDIS now? Is there anything?
No, I mean, they do reference like the core or the heart in multiple episodes, but it's not a standardized thing. And I feel like they kind of leave it open so they can write other stories into it, to be honest.
Right.
You know, and it's like, it fluctuates. Timey-wimey.
It just seems odd that he needed a human to open it.
I mean, that's just for story's sake. That's why they needed to
Yeah.
have the companions and, you know.
It doesn't feel like a Time Lord kind of move to make.
The other thing I kind of wanted to touch on that they mention in a lot of Doctor Who episodes is the pocket watch and how that is so significant to the Doctor and, you know, the time coming. And it's like, I like how Lee just kind of pops it open, checks it out, carries it around. And I'm like, that's kind of important.
Is
and I
that-
don't know if it was that important in pre-Doctor Who
Yeah.
as it is now. So I wonder if they kind of took that trope and decided to kind of run with it and make a thing to carry this pocket watch and have it
Kind of like the bow tie or a fez. Like,
Yeah,
the,
like,
the pocket
well-
watch was his thing in this.
Yeah, but
Maybe.
I mean, even later they're like, "Oh, this is your life," and you know, it'll open and all this other stuff. But I was like, "Oh, I wonder if a pocket watch is pre-Who because I haven't seen everything." And you know,
Right.
it's interesting that it comes up in this movie.
I don't know. I liked it. I would give it I would say overall B minus, maybe C plus, B minus, as where, you know, I don't know. I feel like I'm being a little unfair because I'm holding it to the higher standards of
And it's hard, especially when you look at the
David
edit.
Tennant.
Yeah.
You know, and it's I just feel like it's not fair to judge it to that. You know,
And it is hard because when you think about it and we think about our favorite doctors, we have seasons with these doctors that
Yeah.
we enjoy. And we only had an hour and a half.
Right.
So to judge a doctor based off an hour and a half of what you see, it is unfair.
Yeah.
But this is all we really, really have of Paul McGann being the doctor.
Right.
And I think for the time that it was actually like, I want to say for an average viewer, it has to be lower around the C area.
Yeah, so let's.
But
What is everyone out there, Tom and Thor and Thunda, Donnie? Let us know what you guys rate this. What do you guys usually do? Do you do a screwdriver, a sonic screwdriver?
We
What
tried
do
a
you-
bunch of different things. We say sonic screwdrivers. We tried to do it out of 13, but then we couldn't do the math of what grade that actually was. So we're going to do it out of 5. So out of 5 sonic screwdrivers. Because I don't math.
Do we do halves? Or you do halves or no?
Yeah, you could do halves. You could do whatever
if
you
we were
want.
doing halves, I would say 3.5 screwdrivers.
Yeah, I mean, I would be right with that rating as well.
Yeah, I feel like 3. It's 3 to 3.5. I feel like 4 is way too high. It just feels like a 3 might be a bit on the low side. I don't know. I'm gonna go between 3 and 3.5.
And it is hard because like I didn't watch this when it originally aired, and with so many years kind of behind the Doctor Who belt now, that it does feel incredibly dated. Even the editing of like the flashing of like, let's repeat this, echo, 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 and it like cuts, and it's like it's just so corny and so cliched. Like everything about it feels that way because of where we are now. But thinking back in the 90s, like this is kind of what the 90s was.
Right.
You know, and for the time that it came out, I want to say that it was actually a little bit better than passable.
Yeah.
For a straight to TV movie.
If I'm going to be really honest, I would say I would have been more interested in Who off the bat if we had opened with McGann other than Eccleston. No diss towards Eccleston, but for me, I started Doctor Who with Eccleston.
Yeah.
And I had to give it a whole season and say, okay, I'll keep going with it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like with McGann, I might have jumped on board earlier if we had opened with him as
he seems a
the
little
new
more
Doctor.
affable than Eccleston. Eccleston was a little bit harder, but
Mm-hmm.
also I feel like I had a hard time with the kind of the reboot with Eccleston is because I didn't like Rose. It's not
Yeah.
a secret. I don't like her. I like Grace a lot more. I found her to be way more intelligent, way more compelling, and more helpful to the Doctor than Rose was. So them as a companion and Doctor, and even if Lee decided to join them for whatever reason, like I would have been interested to watch them continue. based off of this movie. More so
Interesting.
than Rose and Eccleston.
Yeah, Rose. I do like Rose with Tennant, but I think, yeah, Eccleston. I almost tapped out after one season with Eccleston.
I did too.
enjoyed
The
story.
production.
I enjoyed the writing enough that I stuck around.
Yes.
But I almost tapped out, and I feel like McGann was a lot more likable out of the gate.
Yeah.
So.
And the kind of the writing and the character that they gave him, even when he wasn't talking, the way that he dressed and the way that he approached things, just was a little bit more likable, a little more affable, and more easy to get into. It seems like once he figured out who he was, he could start telling jokes, he could start being fun and more
Right.
adventurous.
And Tom Craven gives it a 3.75. Tom is a writer at that hashtag
Yes,
show.com.
he is. I see him in our Slack chats, and
Yes, and if you have Doctor Who theories, and there are a lot. I know this is a fandom that is rich with fan theory, with fan contribution. It is a very, very rich fandom, and long. I mean, it goes back as long.
yeah,
I mean,
it spans generations.
yeah.
Like,
I mean,
my mom,
there's Star
I
Trek
watch
and
it,
Doctor
yeah.
Who, and
Yes.
it's like there's these old fandoms. It's one of the original fandoms. Fan theories at that hashtag show.com. If you could string together 3 sentences, we'll run it, man. We'll
We'll
give
put
it
it
to
on
us.
that hashtag show.com. You'll
Put
get
it
some
out to the
writing
world.
credit. Yeah, and share
See
it with
what
your
everybody
friends.
else thinks.
And then we want to put it out there also to get more people in this conversation, because this
Yes.
is kind of a new channel and we want more discussions. You know,
This,
like,
I mean, I love sci-fi. Sci-fi has gotten a bad rap over the last some years because it doesn't bring in a ton of money at the box office, because it's really
And it's
not for
expensive to
everybody.
make.
It's expensive to make.
So-
Sometimes it's about the pacing. Sometimes it's about just being for geeks. It's just like too geeky. But Doctor Who seems to bridge generations, and it's the kind of fandom that I want to hear and run stories about, because it just go, if you've never been to a Doctor Who a Gallifrey 1,
so much fun.
it's so much fun, and
Everyone
it's a
is
lively,
so kind and
lively
so
group of people.
It is, and
Yeah.
they like to party. So actually, that'll be coming up in February. So if any of you want to write any of these articles, we might be able to get you in. So
this-
says Joe. I don't know if he actually says that. I'm speaking for him. Junior's saying whoa, whoa, whoa. But yeah, I mean,
Very
if you
cool.
could submit anything to us about Doctor Who, try to engage us, engage other people, we would really appreciate it. We will get you published on.
Have you ever
hashtag.
cosplayed Doctor Who
I have,
characters?
yeah.
I've seen your bow ties. So
Yeah, 8th Doctor, Amy.
do you go to Disneyland on that Doctor
Yeah,
Who day?
I really enjoyed it. I also made like a silence mask because that was kind of my favorite thing, but it didn't come out very well.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for having me on your show this
Of
week.
course, thanks for being a great
Yeah,
companion.
you're welcome. I don't know, did I go off course by like immediately jumping into these things that I had questions
No,
about?
we have no platform for the show whatsoever yet. We are only like 11
Okay,
episodes.
I'm trying to,
deep.
before we get out of here, I'm trying to think if there was another question. I talked about the thing, the half-human thing, which was really weird.
That never comes back, as
Yeah.
far as I know, and is never mentioned again.
Okay, you answered all my questions. You and producer Nagami got to the bottom of my questions, so thank you.
Excellent. I'm glad
cool.
we could be of service. And if any of you in the chat have any other questions, put them on Facebook.
There you
at
go.
THS hashtaggers.
So thank you for watching live from Gallifrey. Please go to our Facebook group, THS Hashtaggers in Facebook. Okay, you have to have a Facebook profile. And if you're there already, come find our group and talk to us. We're in there posting our stories, sharing stories. Like I said, if you want to write for us, send something in. We'll take a look, and most likely we'll publish it. So
Yeah.
like, share, and subscribe. Go to thathashtagshow.com, your source for everything trending.
And geek pop culture. Merry Christmas.
Timey-wimey, timey-wimey.